take a tour on a peaceful country road. Bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, on a strip of sandy soil, lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road. You're bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road. You're bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be.
I will now call to order the Public Hearings Committee. If I could have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Vandendriessche. All those in favor? That is carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, I will now officially open the public meetings held under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, and County Policy. Please be advised that in order to preserve your right to appeal to the local planning appeals tribunal, you are required to make comments or provide written submissions prior to the passage of a bylaw. It is important to note that no final decisions are being made on these matters today. These meetings are to allow the public to provide initial comments, and further reports will come forward at a future date. If I could ask for any of those that aren't speaking currently, until you're called upon, if you could please put your microphones on mute. First is staff report CD 21-09. This is an application proposing to rezone the subject lands from urban residential type 4 zone R4 to urban residential type 5 zone R5 to permit a 3-story 9-unit apartment dwelling and site-specific special provisions to bring the proposed into compliance with zoning bylaw 1Z 2014. The application also requested to remove the existing hold provision. 1991336 Ontario and agent Manish Padar have put forth the application affecting the lands described as part lots 6 and 7, block 127A, plan 182 in the urban area of Simcoe, Norfolk County. And Mr. Wilson, I believe this is over to you now. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Madam Chair indicated, this property is located in Simcoe. I'll start my presentation by first providing some context of the site. So the site is located on the south side of Patterson Street within the urban area of Simcoe. The property is designated residential and hazard lands and zoned urban residential type 4 with a holding, as well as being zoned hazard lands. The predominant land uses in the area are residential dwellings along Patterson Street with hazard lands to the south of the subject lands. The proposal is to rezone the subject lands from urban residential type 4 to urban residential type 5 to permit a 3-story, 9-unit apartment building. The application also is requesting to add special provisions on site to address site constraints posed by the development. For council's information, I have provided an illustration of how this site looks, and that is your top image. This slide indicates the intent of the proposal in terms of size and scale, which is that top image. Design can be further refined through the site plan control process, with the intent of this structure looking more closer to a dwelling rather than your typical apartment structure. The proposal is very similar to the development directly east of the subject lands, which is also a 3-story apartment building. Staff would highlight that the proposed is intended for residential units, and these are rental units, housing type which is highly desirable in the county, especially in our urban areas. The image at the bottom does show the general layout of the site, with parking in the rear and the proposed structure in the front. There are 3 required or requested amendments for this proposal. One to permit a reduced lot frontage, the second to permit a reduced front yard setback, and the third to permit a reduction in parking. To summarize, a concept plan, stormwater brief, planning justification report, functional servicing report, and geotechnical report was provided by Padar Planning, who is the agent on the file. We did circulate the items and application for agency and department comments, and there were a few technical items which were flagged. The core of these comments were with regard to confirmation needed from the Long Point Regional Conservation Authority regarding floodplain elevation on site. The agent is aware of these comments and has begun correspondence with LPRCA as well as planning staff to complete this requirement. Staff did receive several inquiries regarding the application past the June 23rd date indicated here. Though nothing was submitted officially in terms of comments, there were a number of inquiries, which I'll highlight here. First, there was a request of confirmation that development will not impact the neighboring wildlife. Next, concerns regarding trespassing and privacy, whether there be increase in traffic and safety concerns, and lastly, potential runoff onto neighboring properties. Staff have addressed these comments to the members that did reach out, but for council and the public's sake, I'll highlight kind of our general response. With regard to wildlife, at this time, there's no perceived impact on the wildlife. Concerns with trespassing, it's noted that appropriate fencing and other items can be implemented through site plan control. With regard to traffic and safety concerns, a traffic impact report was provided. And regarding runoff onto neighboring properties, hydraulic analysis and floodplain mapping was provided as a document. And further, these items with regard to runoff are managed through site plan control through grading plans, which was reviewed by the building and development team. In terms of next steps, there will be a recommendation report going to council and future site plan application, subject to council's decision on this application. At this time, planning staff would like to continue discussions with the agent and Long Point regarding the floodplain items, but are happy to proceed to that recommendation report. This concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions council or the public may have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Scott. Just one quick question here before we get going. I just see that the application requested to remove the existing holding provision. I'm not really sure why that's even on the application, because council doesn't, we have a bylaw, council doesn't have the ability to go and pick and choose who is going to get servicing when servicing is limited. So it doesn't seem like something that should even be on the table for a debate at public hearings.
Through you, Chair, Madam Chair, that's correct. This will be an item that will be addressed through removal of a holding at a further date, and this holding will be maintained through this process. It's staff's recommendation that the holding stays until it's removed through our formal process.
Yeah, again, I think that's to the CBO and so on. So just if there's future applications with Simcoe, again, I don't think that's something for council or the public hearings committee to go and make a decision on. That's within the bylaw and to the discretion of the chief building official based on the servicing that's available and the order in which they were processed. Councillor Vanden Drieschie, I see your hands up.
Could you tell me, when you indicated that would be a parking reduction, what does that mean in the senses of the number of units? Do you go to each unit gets 2 parking slots, or what are we talking about?
Through the chair and to councillor, the reduction is the site requires 17 parking spaces and the applicant has requested 12 spaces. In terms of how that's being broken down, if there is 9 units, it wouldn't be an equal split of 2. It would have to be a reduction of how many each site or each unit would have, but there would be guest parking. So at this moment, I'm not sure exactly how it would be divvied, and would ask if the agent would provide any clarity on that through their delegation. But what my understanding is that the 12 is what's being proposed here today, with that guest parking and barrier-free as well.
Okay, I just said that poses problems in the future. If there's a number of units versus where are they going to park, then they start parking on the street. Just my concern.
Okay, any further questions from councillors? Very valid concern, Councillor Vanden Drieschie, I agree. I think that we just have one. I'm not sure if this is the agent. Is this the agent, Nick?
Or Mayor Chop?
Oh, Councillor Martin, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Okay. Thank you. Through you, I may need to Mr. Wilson, I can pose this to the agent as well, but I was going to ask a similar question. So the follow-up to your answer would be, do we know the makeup of the units, or would you like me to pose that to the applicant? Because if they're all one bedroom, then maybe the parking option could be suitable. If they're not, then that makes a difference to me.
I believe the agent is here to speak, so maybe let's go through their presentation and perhaps some of that will be revealed in the presentation. Nick, are you on the line?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Are you using a slide deck?
No, I do not have a presentation for you this
Okay.
afternoon. Just a quick little comment to the application and some of the questions.
That sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, just to get started, SBM Strict Beltline Mona has taken over as the agent from Padar Planning. So today, myself as the planner, we also have Ryan Froese as the civil engineer, who can also answer questions, as well as Michael May, who's the applicant. So in terms of floor plans and unit configurations, Mike is able to speak to that, and hopefully we can answer any questions that council has. In terms of the parking, we did provide a traffic, or Padar Planning provided a traffic impact brief that was completed by SBM. And what was proposed was a reduction of 5 parking spaces, correct? And essentially 1 unit per dwelling with 3 visitor parking spaces. We feel this is a sufficient parking for the apartment dwelling. It's kind of consistent with the similar projects that we've done elsewhere, where it's kind of a commonly approved for 1 space per unit. And this is kind of what we've been doing lately. And we don't see that, we haven't had any issues with that kind of ratio. In terms of the other comments that was presented by Scott, we are working with the Long Point Region Conservation Authority. We have provided a floodplain review as well, and it looked at the up and downstream conditions and what impacts would be provided. We found that there'd be very little, if not zero, impact. So hopefully they are satisfied working through the report and providing some conditions or comments that would be amenable to this application. But we feel the application to permit the low-rise apartment is appropriate infill for Simcoe, and of course we feel that it is our opinion that the application is consistent with provincial policies and the official plan. So hopefully we can answer any other questions that council has, and we look forward to your comments as well as public if anyone is here. Thank you.
Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. Through you to Nick. Nick, can you speak to the specific configuration of the apartment units? Specifically, what I'm wondering is if they're all 1-bedroom units, which I'm imagining they're not, then 1 parking spot per is probably more realistic. If they're 2 and 3 bedrooms, then 1 parking spot per unit, I don't think will be enough for the area.
Through the chair, I might actually defer that to the applicant himself. But in my experience, that 1 space per unit for apartment dwellings has been standard in terms of our applications that we've gone elsewhere, from Sarnia, Chatham, London, Brantford. So we haven't seen any issues in the last few years. So, but I mean, every place is different, and every resident is different as well. 2 bedrooms is, I didn't not necessarily having 2 drivers at once. And we see trends going toward people not choosing to drive if they don't have to, particularly in younger generations. So I'll leave it at that. And if Mike has any other additional comments, I'll leave that to him.
Yeah, and while Mike's getting ready, I'll just share with you that we don't have Uber, we don't have Lyft. We have our own little transportation bus system here, but it goes, I think, goes in and out of Brantford. Maybe it might be once a day now, but so yeah, those I hear your comments, but I don't know if we're there yet in Norfolk County.
Yeah, the reason we chose the 2 bedrooms instead of the 1 is just because it's more suitable for tenants, and we thought it would be just a better proposal to have 2-bedroom units instead of a 1-bedroom unit.
Okay, so they're all 2-bedroom units, Mike?
They all are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Taylor, I think I saw your hand up right at the beginning.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to either Nick or Mike, whoever wants to tackle this. I like the inclusion of the barrier-free parking spot, but might be a silly question, but are you planning on having at least one barrier-free unit?
Through you, Mayor. I don't believe that we would have an accessible unit just on the basis that we are near a floodplain and the building would be designed to be higher up out of the floodplain elevation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Huffman?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Actually, Councillor Taylor took the words. I wanted to know if there would be an accessible unit.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, I too have a concern with 2-bedroom units and only one parking spot. With snow removal and that type of thing, it's going to create issues, especially in the off season in the wintertime. And where do you anticipate your overflow parking to be for visitors and guests to this unit development?
Through the chair to Councillor. We have 3 additional parking spaces. I don't know if they have been delineated or reserved at this point in time. There might be still some configuration changes, but the 3 spaces would be on site.
Thank you.
Councillor Huffman, another question from you, or just the hand still up? Okay. Any further questions from council? Councillor Van Den Rishi, go ahead.
Thank you. They always say it's better a stupid question than a dumb mistake. So I'm curious about this. I'm not familiar with any of this yet. So you've got a 3-story apartment building, and I'm hearing you don't have access. Does that mean you don't have an elevator? Is that what it means? It's all totally walk up? Is that what that means?
Correct. Yeah, there's no elevator.
There's no elevator. So it's a 3-story walk up, and you've got 1 parking space per, and then 3 extra.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Further questions from councillors? Okay, is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application? Again, I'll just put it out there one more time if there's anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to this application. Okay, in that case, obviously staff will be understanding the comments from council in regards to parking. Does somebody wish to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Michelli. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next, we have staff report CD 2148. It's an application that's been received to amend the zoning bylaw to include a special provision zoning for the subject lands to accommodate on-site parking for a use commercial doctor dental clinic with 4 residential apartment units on the 2nd floor. 2642755 Ontario Inc. and agent John Douglas Valley have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 68 King Street in Delhi. And Scott, I think, is that back to you again for this one?
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. As the Madam Chair indicated, this is located in Delhi. The site itself is a through lot. So it's located on the south side of King Street and the north side of Church Street West. This is within the urban area of Delhi. The property is designated downtown and zoned central business district. The predominant land uses in the area is the mix of commercial with residential units on the second floor. There's also a few residential, sole residential properties to the east and southeast. The proposal itself is to amend the central business district zone to add multiple special provisions to accommodate on-site parking in the front yard for a 2-story mixed-use commercial dental clinic with 4 residential apartment units on the second floor. The resulting special provisions will have a building setback of 25 meters, whereas 3 meters is typically seen along King Street. For council's information, I provide the illustration to show what the site looks like today. As you can see, it's vacant, mainly used for overflow parking. The applicant is proposing 2 design options for the proposed. The first proposal you'll see on the screen would require only special provisions A and B, but would not facilitate a walkway from King Street to the clinic apartment building. The second option would require all the above special provisions to facilitate a walking path from King Street to the dental clinic. Planning staff are reviewing these options in terms of compatibility with the surrounding area and in terms of pedestrian movement and access along King Street. To summarize in terms of submission items, an environmental site assessment, planning justification report, and concept plan was provided by G. Douglas Valley Limited. We did circulate the items and application for agency comments, and there was nothing in particular to flag. A few comments, technical comments were provided by Development Engineering regarding water modeling. In terms of public comments, I have not, or staff have not received any formal public input regarding the application. And in terms of next steps, there will be a recommendation report going to council and future site plan applications subject to the decision on this application. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions council or the public may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Questions for Mr. Wilson? Otherwise, we can hear from the applicant agent, and then we can always come back to Scott as well. I believe Eldon Darbison, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Did you have a presentation you need to put up, sir? Or
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you. Okay. Is the presentation viewable?
Yep, that's right there. Perfect.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Eldon Darbus. I'm a registered professional planner with G. Douglas Valley Limited, and we're representing the owners of Delhi Smiles. We talked about the location at 68 King Street as it being a through lot. There's it's vacant with the exception of a small unused building that's there. The owners would like to establish a new clinic which will occupy the entire ground floor of the building with residential units above. The central business district zone doesn't require parking, but it's important to the success of the clinic that clients be provided with clear, obvious, and accessible on-site parking. Design standards require accessible parking to be located near the entrance, and we agree, so therefore we're proposing modifications to the zoning bylaw. It's the goal to provide the shortest distance between accessible parking and the front entrance of the clinic, especially for customers with accessibility challenges. We did give consideration to providing all the parking in the back lot, accessed from Street. However, associating the parking area with the clinic will not be obvious regard to clientele when approaching the clinic lands from rear yard on Church Street. So it is important to our clients that 8 spaces be provided on King Street. It's also important to provide easy barrier-free pedestrian access to the clinic. As such, a pathway is proposed from King Street to the front of the clinic, along with landscaping to enhance the character of the property. Amendments to the zoning bylaw are requested to facilitate parking in the front yard and provide barrier-free access to the clinic. To facilitate this mixed-use development, we are requesting a number of amendments, including parking in the front yard and increased setbacks. The details of the amendments to reduce parking space depth and aisle widths are included and were covered by Mr. Wilson. And we do note that we have surveyed 5 other municipalities' parking aisle width standards and parking depth standards. And we found that the average parking space depth is 5.6 meters and an aisle width of 6.5 meters. So what we're proposing is greater than these averages. The proposed modifications would be appropriate as they are similar to other municipal standards that work. So the proposed amendments for permitting parking in the front yard are not out of character with the properties in the general area. This slide shows that there's lands highlighted in purple, and currently they have parking located in the front yard, and buildings are set back beyond the 3-meter maximum setback provision. So this application is consistent with the established character of the area. The current use of the parking lot, which currently facilitates parking throughout the entire site. Essentially, the proposed development is retaining 8 of those parking spaces in the front yard, and we're enhancing the look and feel of the parking area through the provision of landscaping and barrier-free pedestrian pathway. So this project provides a new clinic with residential component, which we believe is something beneficial for Delhi. A few amendments are required to make the project work and allow parking in the front yard. Overall, we believe that this is a good development, and we request the support of council to make it happen. I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak, and we can answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Alden, for that presentation. Councillor Rabbits, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, and through you for our deputation. We do have 2 options presented in our report, and I don't want to assume, but I will pose the question. I assume you want option 2, that you are looking to have that pedestrian aisleway approved in the application?
Yes, that's correct.
And if I may further, you're hoping to have that decision today, so we don't set you down a pathway and then have it turned around when we're confirming?
Not necessarily. I mean, it would be nice to have some direction, but staff had an opportunity to review it, please. So we'd be willing to work with staff and answer any questions that they have that are working through that. We just feel that access is very important, and especially providing that pedestrian access from King Street to the dental clinic would add a nice feature, and it would provide safety as well. We would rather not have people exiting their vehicles, and they would be able to access that sidewalk, and we'd try to keep them out of the parking lot if we can.
So there wouldn't be a decision made today, Councillor Rabbits. This is just a public hearing, so it's taking this in as information. You certainly can provide feedback to staff at this point if you'd like to provide some feedback on what options, if you're in supportive or not supportive of one of those.
Understood. I just, I guess my question is, this is preliminary options, I suppose, but we can't really offer the applicant any concrete avenue to pursue at this juncture, right? We're just, if anything, we'll have more options in the next report. Just trying to assist. There's no sense that it won't later be adopted.
No, I think planning comments right underneath, and they can certainly speak here further, but it just says under those options that are being discussed, that the proposed development will be further reviewed based on the above mentioned provisions, and a related discussion will be provided within the recommendation report. So you will see that recommendation report come to the future council and committee meeting.
I appreciate that. And I think in closing, I just want to also comment that I think option 2 would be the better one to pursue. Only concern I have is for accessibility. It would be nice if we had more of those wheelchair accessible units adjacent to or connected with that aisleway. That would make sense to me. And I do have some concerns about the reduction in the depth of some of the parking lots. And I don't know how that could be addressed, but I'm just appreciating our area, and I'm anticipating large pickup trucks perhaps occupying some of those spaces. So perhaps we could think about maybe the depth of some of those spaces, offering not only perhaps more handicap accessible spaces, but also considering we may have oversized trucks and they may need some place to park on that spot. Maybe you could carve out an area where snow removal would be. And then in the fair weather, we could possibly have depths greater than is being proposed. Those are just some initial thoughts when reviewing the application.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rabbits. Moving on, any other questions from councillors? Does anyone else on the line wish to, oh, Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to make a comment, if I could.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this lot's been vacant for quite some time. It used to be a used car sales lot. And it's a very good example of infilling in the downtown area of a community. And of course, there's no water issues in Delhi at this time. And I think this is the highest and best use for the property. The dentist office is a ways out of town at the current time. It's the only dentist office in the town of Delhi. And it'd be much more better suited in this particular location for all the residents involved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think it's great as well. Okay, anything further? Is there, oh, Councillor Van Passen, I see your hand is up.
Just a quick question for Mr. Wilson, our planner. On page 77 of our agenda, the comments from the zoning administrator, is that an error in cut and paste? It speaks to the garages, the decks, things like that. I think we mixed up which application or which report they should have went into.
Through the chair to Councillor, I have my report in front of me. I'll just take a quick look and then let you know.
While we're waiting, I think it's definite that it's been a mix-up here. So any further questions, Councillor Van Passen, that you have?
No, just want to make sure we get this one right before it's filed away forever. So,
anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application? Again, is there anyone on the line that wishes to speak to the application? Okay, it doesn't sound like it. And if there's no further questions from staff, Mr. Wilson, did you have a chance to just look at that on 77?
Yes, I did. Through the chair, I did have a look. It does look like the comments provided don't match up with what's being proposed here today. I'm not sure if that was a copy and paste error or an issue just with what was submitted. I'll confirm that. If there's anything of substance, I'll ensure that it's provided to councillors.
I think the entire thing is wrong because even at the bottom it talks about Port Rowan Post Office. I'm going to wager they have post office boxes in Delhi. So you guys can just get that part fixed up. Councillor Van Passen, did you need a copy of the circulation comments sent to you?
no, we'll just get it straight before the next meeting so we know what we're dealing with.
Perfect. Okay, in that case, if I could have a mover for the staff recommendation. Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next one we have staff report CD 2149, an application that's been received to amend the official plan to permit the creation of 5 lots by way of severance instead of through a plan of subdivision. Concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application requesting to rezone the subject lands from urban residential type 4 to urban residential type 2. 2494574 Ontario Limited and Agent Elder Plans Incorporated have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 11 Niagara Avenue. And Nicole, I believe this is your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. As Madam Chair indicated, this property is located in Simcoe. The site is located on the north side of Yeager Avenue and is approximately 4,758 square meters in size. It sits currently vacant and is surrounded by a variety of residential uses, including some medium to high density to the east and low density to the west and south. The lower photo on the slide identifies how the site currently looks. The proposal before you today includes both an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw. Firstly, the applicants are proposing to create 5 lots through consent rather than the permitted 4 as outlined in policies for section 9.6.3.2 of the official plan. And secondly, through a zoning bylaw amendment, the applicants propose to develop the site with 2 semi-detached dwellings and 1 single detached dwelling tucked into the back. In order to facilitate this development, the site requires a rezoning to rezone the site from the existing R4 down to an R2. In terms of the policy context, the proposed development would be considered infill, and given the current state of the site, intensification as well. The site is well positioned for additional housing with amenities such as schools and public space existing close by. The area where this development is proposed to be located is already quite diversified as far as housing stock, and this development would further contribute to that. In relation to the zoning, the proposed lot layout meets the provisions of the proposed R2 zone. The uses are, of course, also permitted. The applicants provided the documents outlined on the slide in support of their application, as were identified through an earlier pre-consultation meeting. As you can see there, planning justification report, traffic brief, waste, water and water characteristics report, site plans, etc. And final agency comments are still coming in. So far, staff have identified potential areas of focus for the eventual development of the site, such as ensuring adequate parking, but no major concerns have been raised in regards to the official plan and zoning amendments. No public input has been submitted thus far to the planning department. So in terms of next steps, staff will be waiting the confirmation of servicing modeling for the site and will review the comments provided by all agencies and departments. Following this review and the review and incorporation of any comments received today, a recommendation report will be provided to council. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions council or the public may have.
Okay, we do have the agent and applicant, I believe, both with us, but any questions first to staff? We can always come back to them as well. Okay, in that case, Mr. Rowe, I believe you're online.
Yes, I am. Which application are we talking about at this point?
Yeager Avenue.
No, that one, I'm actually not involved in that one. I'm not sure how I wound up on the list, but
I believe this is Mary Elder.
it's Mary Elder's, actually.
Okay, I just assumed with you two working together there was, so Mary, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on my phone.
Okay,
my computer keeps freezing up, so I'm on my telephone. It's the best I can do.
No problem. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, I do have a slide presentation. I'm hoping someone can present that for me because I can't see it at all. The second slide would be where I would start to speak. This is an interesting situation. As the rest of the area is developed, you can see that there's on this slide, there's a large R4 with a grassed field around it and development all the way around it. To the right of your picture, there is a 3-story apartment building which fronts on Donnelly Drive, and it was probably one of the first things that was built in this area.
Mary,
Yes?
we're still missing the slide deck here, so just hang on 1 second so we can
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't tell.
I'll give you the go ahead.
Okay.
Through the mayor, I'm not sure that we have the presentation. I'm just going to throw it out to planning to see if they received it.
I sent it to the clerk on at noon on Monday to clerks at norfolk.ca.
Okay, just 1 second. We're just bringing it up. Just one moment.
Great. Glad you found it.
All right, we have the slideshow up.
Okay, if you could be on slide 2.
Okay, we're there, Mary. Go ahead.
Great. So there's a large grassed area in the center of the photo that has an R4 on it. That is the subject lands. As you can see, the rest of the area is developed. On the right side, there's a 3-story apartment building which fronts on Donnelly Drive, which was probably one of the first things built in the area. And then semi-detached dwellings on the south side of Jaeger were probably next. Eventually, there was an extension of Jaeger Avenue to the west with single detached dwellings and a whole other subdivision and lots of side streets. Lynn Valley or Lynn Court townhouse condos is abutting the subject lands on the north lot, the north boundary of the lot. There's an elementary school just east of the apartments with adjoining parkland. Shopping on the Queensway to the north is about 1 kilometer away, and downtown shopping is about 2 kilometers from this site. The bus stop is just 2 blocks away. So the area is clearly family-oriented and in close proximity to a lot of amenities that a person in a family would want. The lot has sat empty for more than 20 years in its time it was developed. Zoning is currently R4, and we're proposing that the R4 be changed to an R2, which would permit semi-detached dwellings and single detached dwellings. The R2 zone provides provisions for the semis and refers to the R1 zone for the provisions for the single family. The proposal does not need any exemption from these provisions. So again, looking at this slide, the apartment to the right is zoned R6, even though it's 3 stories high. The Lynn Court on the top edge of the page is R4. The lands to the west are R1A with the single detached homes, and lands to the south are R2 at the bottom of the page. Slide 3, please. This slide shows the lot outlined in a blue-green kind of color, and it has an orange line on it. Developing this lot is challenging because the lot is extremely deep at almost 87 meters. It's wide at 56.34 meters, and this orange line on the right side, on the left side, which is the west side, is a stormwater easement with buried pipe, and it angles from that northwest corner down to the front of the lot where it takes up 12 meters of frontage. The next slide then. This shows the vacant lot from the west looking towards the apartment buildings. You can see all the parking spaces in the parking lot. And then at the very back, you can see the 2-story townhouses that are part of Lynn Court. Next slide. This is a view from the east across the vacant lot, looking at the single houses that are on the west side of the property. And finally, the next slide shows the semi-detached homes that are on the south side of Jaeger and what they might look like from the east. Next slide. This slide shows the proposal as drawn by the county's GIS staff. Now, downzoning to a lower density of development is unusual when the provincial policy statement and the official plan use the terms intensification and infilling. But one aspect of intensification is the development of vacant lots within previously developed areas. This proposal adds 5 residential units, so it is intensification. It may not be what was envisioned 20 years ago, but with the passage of time, reconsideration is necessary. Infill development is the process of developing land or underutilized parcels within existing urban areas that are already essentially developed. Like most communities, Simcoe has vacant land within its urban limits, which for various reasons over time and in the normal course of urbanization, they have not been developed. 5 family-sized dwelling units are more than what is there now and are compatible intensification and infilling with a long-established neighborhood. The proposal will utilize the existing infrastructure and complete development of the family-oriented neighborhood, with a mix of low-density housing abutting the site on 3 sides and the apartment building only being 3 stories high. The proposed 2-story dwelling units are very compatible with the abutting properties and the area. No traffic issues are anticipated. The functional servicing report anticipates the existing water and sanitary services will be able to accommodate the proposal once the servicing limitations are addressed. The criteria in the official plan can be met. While generally the proposed type of housing is to have an average net density of 15 units per hectare, the proposal is on the lower side at 11.6 units per hectare. It's expected when the averaging of other higher density developments occurs, the county average target will be met. An exception for proceeding through consent rather than plan a subdivision is also being requested through an official plan amendment. Although a plan of subdivision is the preferred method of land division, policy does permit exceptions where it's clearly not necessary or in the public interest to develop by a plan of subdivision. This proposal creates 4 new lots with 1 retained, so 5 lots in total. Each semi-detached dwelling could be sold in 1 ownership, and then it would only be 3 lots, two new ones and 1 retained. But the owner is being upfront about the fact that the preferred end result is single ownership on 4 separate units for those semi-detached houses. Under policy in the official plan, the plan of subdivision may be waived for 4 infilling lots where the proposal could be accepted. The proposed lots front on Yeager Avenue, an existing assumed public road that is maintained on a year-round basis. The surrounding area is already an established neighborhood and no vacant or unused land remains. The stormwater easement is respected and the retained lands are being utilized for a single detached dwelling. The final slide, please. In summary then, this vacant lot developed by way of consents with 2 semi-detached dwellings and 1 single detached dwelling is in the public interest and represents good planning as it intensifies the existing land use and fills an underutilized vacant residential lot, utilizes existing infrastructure, fronts on an established road, does not create any traffic issues, and it is compatible with existing residential development, and it adds family-sized residential units to the neighborhood. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Questions from Eric? There we go. There's something going on there with the system. Councillor Vanden Rishi, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I'd like to just understand this. When I'm looking at my diagram here, and I've got these off of Yeager, I can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then is that supposed to be then on the left-hand side of the document that I'm looking at? There's a proposed dwelling in the back. Is that supposed to be some sort of easement through there? And then what's the space? Like, it doesn't utilize the space. Am I wrong? Am I seeing this incorrectly, or?
Through the mayor?
Yes.
In response to the question, there is an easement there, but the driveway will go through that area. There's probably enough room to put the driveway between the lot line and the actual pipe, and discussions are underway to make sure that that doesn't impact on that pipe. But yes, that is the entrance for the lot at the back where there'd be a single family home.
Okay, so but the home doesn't have access to another road. It just has access to Yeager through the easement on the left-hand side. Is that
That's
what I'm-
correct.
That's what I'm understanding. So, and then this lot creates quite a big lot, proposed dwelling where it's sitting, correct? Is that a fairly good sized lot?
Through the mayor, yes, it is.
Yes, what I thought. Okay. All right, just wanted to understand. Thank you.
Did you want to direct any of that question to planning staff as well, Councillor Van Den Rishi?
Yes, I think I would. I'm just, not that I think it's a good use of it. It probably is, but it could have been configured a little bit better that there's better usage there. I don't know. A good question. I don't know. I'm not a contractor, so I don't know.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, so it is a good question regarding the site. I was just trying to bring it up for you again here. So there is an existing easement that we have to take into consideration, which Mary has mentioned. And there's also some, from my understanding, although again, I'm not an engineer, there are some issues as far as providing services directly from our system for water and wastewater should a higher development be proposed in this location. So the proposed development meets what is existing as far as the servicing flows. Otherwise, I believe like an on-site pump station would be required, just given the pipe paving system. So those are the two things that were discussed, and that is definitely a consideration. We are obviously looking at targets of higher density, and we're always looking for the most amount of housing that we can get that is also for the public interest and what people are wanting to live in. But this is kind of what the compromise has been and what's been proposed thus far for the site, given its restraints.
Great. Anything further from council? I see Mike Booth. Are you on the line as well?
Yes, I am.
And you have 5 minutes.
I'm just here as the contractor to answer any questions any of council or any members might have regarding the type of building that we are constructing.
Any questions from councilors?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I think Mike Booth is to do with Lockheed's, not to do with Jaeger.
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I just chimed in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want
else.
to get these mixed up. What's going on here? What am I doing? Okay, is there anyone else on the line then that wishes to speak to the application? Just ask again, is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm Don Wilson. I'm actually going to develop that piece of property on 11 Jaeger. And I realize that it's a difficult piece of property to develop because of that easement where the storm sewer runs through. The lot at the back is a fair size, like Councilwoman said, Linda. But just two blocks over, there's estate lots, which will be the same size, roughly as what this lot at the back creates. If you scroll down, I think there's, I don't know if the MC Engineering's drawings are in there or not. No, this is what Mary brought in. Sorry. They've addressed the grade plan. Oh, here we go. I think it's the next one. Yeah. This is the grade plan for the back lot and then the two semi-detached units in front. And like I say, the size of that lot is large, but it's about the same size as the estate lots 2 blocks over.
I'm listening. I've heard it all today, and I'm at a council meeting right now, but I still get 15 minutes. So go ahead.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay. Is anything further or?
Well, I mean, basically, I mean, if you guys are looking for a retainer for me to hire, that's fine. Withdraws.
Anything further there, Mr. Wilson?
Actually get them our customers ourselves.
Okay, I'm going to carry on with council.
Just one more comment. The laneway that would go up to access that back lot, all that property would be purchased by that homeowner. So they would maintain and own that property. They just can't build on that property because of the easement.
Okay. Councillor Huffman, I think your question, was that answered? I see your hands back down.
Well, I was just, and then it was brought up again. I just wanted to clarify. These are semi-detached, not duplexes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because on the blueprints here, it has proposed 2-story duplex residence.
Yeah,
I think that was confusing me.
Yeah, they were drawn up that way, but we've told the planning that we're going to apply for the severance to divide them into 2 units.
Okay, and since you're developing it, do you have an idea as to what the price points will be for these semi-detached units?
We've done some comparisons, but we haven't really put anything together so far. We need to know whether we can get that lot at the back in there to make this kind of happen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Councillor Vanden Rishi?
No, it's just when I push my little button on my happy face there, I can't get my hand down, so.
Oh, you got it down.
I got it down now.
There you go. Okay, any further questions from the Public Hearings Committee to staff? In that case, if somebody could move the staff recommendation. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. Sorry, Councillor Huffman, did you have a question still? No, okay. In that case, moving right along to staff report CD 2154. It's an application that's been received to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw to permit further development on an existing commercial site. A site-specific policy is proposed to amend the official plan to remove the hazard lands designation, and a special provision is proposed to amend the zoning bylaw service commercial zone to reduce the rear yard setback from 9 meters to 5 meters to facilitate the development. The purpose of the applications would be to support the construction of 2 additional buildings totaling 3 units and all associated infrastructure to support the development. Lee Greenwood and Agent G. Douglas Valley Limited have put forth the applications affecting the lands described as 9 Queensway West. And Nicole, I think this is you again.
Madam Chair. As the chair indicated, this property is located in Simcoe. The site is located on the northwest corner of Norfolk Street South, or Highway 24, and Queensway West. The site is approximately 23,000 square meters in size and contains commercial uses such as Shoppers Drug Mart, Staples, Boston Pizza, and the Bulk Barn. So most likely very identifiable for council. The proposed development includes an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. The applicants are proposing an official plan amendment to remove the hazard lands designation on the site. Through the zoning bylaw amendment, the applicant is proposing the addition of 3 new commercial units on the site, including a restaurant, and then a separate commercial unit with a restaurant and commercial combination. In terms of the policy context, the proposed development is located in an urban settlement area and is within an area which is already subject to OP policy 6.5.1.5, which is specific to the Queensway corridor. This designation focuses on the auto-oriented nature of this commercial strip. The site is also subject to site-specific policies related to the business office equipment and supply sales outlet and bulk food store, which applies to the western portion of the site where those businesses are located now. And the eastern portion is subject to a policy focusing on office and retail site-specific policies. The application also proposes site-specific zoning provisions to address the existing exterior side and interior side yards, as well as a new deficiency created by the proposed development in the rear yard setback. So in support of these proposals, the applicants provided the documents outlined in this slide in support of their application, which was identified by staff through a pre-consultation meeting. Final agency comments are still coming in. No comments of note have arisen thus far. Additionally, no public input has been submitted to the planning department as of today. In terms of next steps, staff will be waiting on the confirmation of servicing modeling and will review the comments provided by agencies. Following this review and the review of the incorporation of any comments received here today, a recommendation will be, report will be provided to council. If approved, the application also has submitted an application for a site plan, and staff will guide the file through that process to completion as well. Just to note, obviously, given the context, this would be an application which would be subject to the proposed holding as of last month's council decision. So that concludes my brief presentation. I'd be happy to take any comments, and I believe agent is also available for a presentation as well.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Van den Riesche, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. There, through you, there's a line when I look at 24 and I look at Riverside Road. There's a line in the middle. It's like is that a train? What is that? Can I ask what that is? Why is that line there? I see it on my diagram, which is on 129. What is that? Am I on the wrong? I don't think so, but.
Just a point of clarification from staff. Do you know what map number it is, Councillor?
Map number?
Yeah.
Official plan map number. Okay. OPNPL 2021-11003. Map
I believe
2.
it's map 2.
Map 2.
Thank you.
What is that dotted line?
Long point?
Yeah. Yeah, so the dotted line actually represents the existing Long Point Region Conservation Authority regulation line. So this area is subject to Long Point's approvals as well through the regulation system. Yeah, and you can also see on the slide before you, there's a blue line as well. So that shows the provincially significant wetland buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So the site previously has been kind of included in that. Our zoning bylaw mapping has changed. And I'm sure Eldon will speak to this in just a second a bit more. But the zoning has changed in regards to changing levels and flows. And so that line has been pulled back a little bit, but our official plan mapping hasn't changed as of yet. It will happen with future updates. However, this application is coming in before that. So that's part of the official plan amendment proposal. But as it still is within the regulation area, even with that hazard land kind of being shifted backwards. So the Long Point Region Conservation Authority will be providing comments as well.
So just a question about the actual subject lands themselves. This is going to be have its access on Elizabeth Road? Or is it maintained in that whole?
Yes. Yeah, through Madam Chair, to Councillor. Yes, so it will maintain the existing entrances. So off of Riverside, both ways, the one turn onto Norfolk, and then the two-way on Queensway.
Okay, so then there's
sufficient
parking then because of all the extra parking that's out there.
Yes, so they are proposing using the existing further to the west.
Okay, so that there's sufficient parking then is my point.
Yes.
Yes.
Based on their calculations.
Based on the calculations. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. Through you to Nicole. My question is regarding concerning traffic, actually. So that is a congested parking lot on a good day and then to add 2 drive-throughs. Sometimes when you pull in off of Queensway and try to head left towards Balkhorn, towards Staples, that's a little bit of a hectic area. There is one kind of stop sign once you enter the parking lot. And additionally, when you leave the parking lot, it can be a bit of a nightmare to try and turn out left onto Queensway towards the intersection. Will there be any requirement, because it's Central Business District, because it's in a parking lot, for traffic studies and whatnot to be done demonstrating if that's, you know, good use of for the space there? Like, I'm even picturing one with a drive-through backed up and taking up parking spaces, further reducing what's available, and then just causing more congestion at that intersection in and out.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is a definite consideration and a concern planning staff identified as well. So this site is also subject to site plan. So in regards to that, that is a component of what is required for that site plan process. So we are looking for a traffic impact study. There was one previously done when the site was the last development, I think was 2008, but we're looking for a fully updated one. And we've worked with the agent as well as the contractor for the traffic engineering to get those numbers and make sure that we address all of those issues in the site plan.
Right, and I'm wondering if there's, you know, should the numbers be high but still suitable for that arrangement, if any consideration would be made to exiting as well on Riverside and having lights in behind Shoppers Drug Mart to access Norfolk Street. I don't know. That would be obviously left to the experts, but it's tough on a good day to pull out there. It certainly is a good location to put, to group other like-minded industry up and down the Queensway. But the traffic would be a bit of a concern for me. So I'll look forward to hearing about that. Thanks.
Further questions from councillors? Councillor Rabbits.
Thank you, through you. My question's in relation to the entrance points and some gateway signage for the new businesses that will be in there. Have on the Queensway, there is a lot of sign gore where it's just peppered with signs when you drive up and down, and some of them are in a good spot where they're not obstructing any viewpoints, but it becomes distracting to drivers. And it almost becomes a bit of a competition who can have the larger sign and edge it out to the easement for approvals. Do we have a plan for maybe a modest sign that just simply lists the businesses at either entrance point? Or are we expecting to have more signs put into the easement in front of Boston Pizza? Or what have we thought about in terms of the signage for these new businesses?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so to Councillor Rabbits, there are kind of 2 components. So one, signs are regulated through the sign bylaw. So as far as the type of sign and the location in relation to corners and things like that, that is addressed through that. And we do address the signage as well through the site plan process. So that is a concern with this site, especially I would say that we're probably looking at maximizing the site with the proposed application. And so we want to make sure that we're also kind of maximizing and utilizing our signage space and a visual space appropriately as well. So that would be a component of that site plan process.
Okay, further questions from councillors? And is the agent on?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Very good. Okay, I have a presentation. Share my screen. Okay. Once again, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Representing our client, Mr. Lee Greenwood, owner of Canadian Commercial Simcoe Inc. Yes, the subject lands are on the northwest corner of Norfolk Street and Highway 3. Excuse me, 9 Queensway West and Simcoe. The existing plaza contains business such as Shoppers Drug Mart, Staples, Boston Pizza, and the Bulk Barn. We're proposing, as Nicole had mentioned, to add 2 new commercial buildings with drive-throughs. One building will contain a restaurant and a separate commercial unit, and the other building will contain just a restaurant. So in order to facilitate this development for both buildings, we have to amend the official plan and the zoning bylaw. So the lands are currently designated commercial and hazard lands. The Constitution Authority has since updated their floodplain mapping, which has allowed the opportunity to remove the associated hazard lands designation. So this is normally done as an administrative housekeeping exercise, as Nicole had mentioned. The county just hasn't had an opportunity to get there yet. So in order for us to move forward, we have to amend the official plan and remove that designation. From the perspective, the uses are permitted. The amendment is to reduce the rear yard setback from 9 meters to 5 meters to accommodate the proposed buildings. Just to highlight, previous approvals permitted the bulk food store to be located a half a meter from the interior side yard. So this amendment is proposing a setback that is 10 times what was previously approved. And fortunately, the adjacent properties are commercial, and we're not anticipating any compatibility issues with that reduced setback. So it's a short presentation. The proposed official plan amendment to remove the hazard land designation will bring the official plan in line with the Conservation Authority floodplain mapping. The zoning bylaw amendment to reduce the rear yard setback is minor, and it will not impact adjacent properties. And we respectfully request that council and staff support the amendments. And thank you again for the opportunity to present. We're here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Eldon. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Chop. Through you to Eldon, 2 questions for you. The first being, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to also comment on traffic concerns and if you have any creative suggestions that you've considered.
Yes, we have. In fact, we've commissioned a traffic impact study, and we will be submitting the results of that to staff for review and comment. So we are looking forward to working with staff to address traffic concerns.
Okay, and then my second question to you would be, at what point in time are you able to share publicly the interest
is now joining?
What can we expect to be adding to the community?
In terms of the uses?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there are 2 restaurants. I'm not certain if our client has settled on those particular businesses. He is here and can answer those questions himself. Okay.
Thanks, Eldon. It's Lee Greenwood. Nice to talk to everybody again. Yeah, at this time we can't disclose those businesses. We are working with a couple of very specific restaurants who want to be in the community. We are doing a balancing act, to be frank with you guys, because of the uncertainty of the timing in regards to this water servicing. So our deals to bring these tenants to the community do hang in the balance, and we hope that we can work with you guys quickly to tell them we can actually deliver these buildings. So we're happy to share with you those specific tenants when some timelines are confirmed, and you'll be the first to know.
Further questions? Okay, more questions for staff? All right. Is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application? Just ask one more time. Is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to this application? Okay, in that case, if I could have a mover for the staff recommendation or alternative, moving the staff recommendation, I'll assume Councilor Van Rishi, and seconded by Councilor Huffman. All those in favor? And that is carried. Sorry, I've just lost my spot here again. So next, we have staff report CD 2156, an application that has been received to amend, 2155, an application that's been received to amend the zoning bylaw to rezone a portion of the existing lands from marine commercial to resort residential, and for the other portion to apply a site-specific provision to amend the existing marine commercial zone to reduce the minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage, and to recognize existing deficiencies in the rear yard setback to facilitate a boundary adjustment benefiting the neighboring property to the west. Randall Dearden have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 17 and 19 Rogers Avenue. Nicole, go ahead.
As Madam Chair indicated, the subject property is located in Long Point. The site is located on the south side of Rogers Avenue. The subject lands contain a small-scale marina and have an area of approximately 849.8 square meters. The property is surrounded by resort residential uses, i.e. vacation homes, and abuts a channel. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is meant to facilitate a boundary adjustment, which would see a portion of the property's western boundary given to the neighboring property directly abutting the marina. The entire marina parcel is zoned marine commercial, and the abutting receiving parcel is zoned resort residential. In order to eliminate split zoning on the proposed receiving site, the subject zoning bylaw amendment is required to rezone the proposed land to be severed appropriately. The applicants are also requesting a site-specific provision to recognize the proposed reduced lot area of the retained marina, as well as a reduced existing setback. As with many of the other files we've seen so far this afternoon, the subject lands fall within the settlement area, this time being a resort area, obviously being Long Point. Both the vacation home and the marina are permitted in the designation and would be appropriately addressed through the proposed amendment to comply with the zoning. Given the fairly simplistic nature of the proposal, only an application and site sketch was required for a complete application. In regard to agency comments, we are still awaiting some. However, the comments have been minimal notes so far. Staff did highlight the importance of identifying parking and outdoor storage to make sure the entire site is compliant moving forward, just in regard to making sure we incorporate everything that should be required in the future into this process. And as of yet, no public input has been received. Next steps will include reviewing all the associated comments provided for this application, and as well as bringing forward a deeming bylaw to a council and committee next week to address the existing parcel fabric of the marina, which includes 2 lots in a lot plan of subdivision, and providing recommendation report in regards to this zoning bylaw application for council's evaluation as presented today. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions council or the public may have.
Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Tuck. Through you to Nicole, I wanted to just comment on this. I know you've been working on this file for probably a few months now. So thank you for your work on it. And this makes sense to me. It doesn't appear to be what a traditional marina would look like in my community versus this one here. So I'm happy to see the county's working with the proponents on this one and some flexibility on cleaning up the lot lines. Just wanted to share some positive comments with you. That's all. In support.
Councilor Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to add to Councillor Martin's comments. This adjustment makes perfect sense and really lines things up with a way that I think is much more consistent with what we expect in an area like that. So I also would fully support this when it comes back.
Further questions? Okay, is there anyone online that wishes to speak to the application? Again, is there anyone online that wishes to speak to this application? Okay, in that case, if somebody could move the staff recommendation then. Councillor Shelley, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. Next is staff report CD 2156. That's an application that has been received to amend the official plan to permit the creation of 5 lots by way of severance instead of through a plan of subdivision. Concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application Z 2021071 requesting to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to hamlet residential. Mark DeVos and Agent Civic Planning Solutions have put forth the applications affecting the lands described as 124 La Salette Road. And Scott, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, the site is located on the south side of La Salette Road within the hamlet of La Salette. The property is designated hamlet and zoned agricultural. The predominant land uses in the area is low-density residential dwellings with agricultural land surrounding the hamlet. There is a commercial property located at 142 La Salette Road, which is encompassed by the subject lands. For council's information, I've provided an illustration of how the site looks today. It's currently an active agricultural operation where a portion of the frontage will be removed for this lot creation. In terms of a proposal, it is to rezone a portion of the parcel along La Salette Road from agricultural to hamlet residential to facilitate the creation of 4 new residential lots in the hamlet area of La Salette. This includes a 5th lot being retained as the farm parcel. The proposal also includes an official plan amendment to amend the official plan policy 9.6.3.2 to permit the creation of 5 lots, so the 4 severed lots and the 1 retained farmland, by way of severance instead of through a plan of subdivision. Where typically 3 lots, 2 severed and 1 retained, is permitted through severances. This is an illustration of what the proposed lots will look like. You can see the 4 lots all have similar frontages, with lot areas ranging from around 4,000 square meters to 3,640 square meters. To summarize in terms of what was provided to staff, we received a concept plan, functional servicing report, hydrological report, traffic impact report, and a planning justification report provided by Civic Planning Solutions. We did circulate these items for agency comments, and there was nothing in particular to flag. Staff would note that a minimum lot size for the hamlet residential zone is 4,000 square meters, and where lots which are less than 4,000 square meters are proposed, there has to be a special provision added. Therefore, I believe, and I'll go back to the last slide, 3 of the 4 lots are less than the 4,000. So a special provision would need to be added in addition to the rezoning to address the lot size reduction. Staff have discussed this with the agent, who is in agreement that additional amendment would be required. And has provided in the original submission the hydrological report, which addresses septic and servicing, the septic on lots that are reduced in size. Staff did not receive any formal input regarding this application. And in terms of next steps, there will be a recommendation report to council and future severance application to split the 4 lots and then the retained lands. At this time, there's been no major issues which would need further action, so staff feel confident in bringing the recommendation report to council for consideration as soon as possible. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to address any questions from council or the public. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Councillor Huffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through you to Scott, I guess, or maybe the applicant will be able to better answer. Instead of making an amendment to decrease the lot, to approve a decrease in the lot sizes and squeezing 4 into what could really be 3, why wouldn't we just look at 3 lots and not make any amendment to the size that is required?
Scott, did you want to speak to that, or we'll hold that question for Mr. Rowe, who I know is on the line, but
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to provide some input. Seeing a reduced lot size is common when we have some of these severance applications in agricultural areas. We do require a report provided that addresses staff's concerns regarding septic. That's one of the main issues we have with reduced lot sizes. That information has been provided through the hydrological report from the agent, and I believe has addressed those concerns. In terms of reducing size, that's a question I would leave for the applicant and agent to respond to in terms of why the 4 was provided instead of the 3. Thank you.
Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, talk to Scott. My question is, why severance instead of plan of subdivision, or why plan of subdivision instead of severance?
Through
is now exiting.
Through the chair, Councillor. The plan of subdivision is typically the preferred method of land severance within the county. We have in the past and can accommodate larger severances when it's appropriate. In this instance, we are considering that these are lots on an established road that does not require servicing, such as water or septic, and have access on Lassaletta Road. If this was within the urban core, it may be more appropriate to require a plan of subdivision, but in this instance, a preferred method would be severances rather than the plan of subdivision.
Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right now, it's probably premature, but this is probably a part of the site plan process. But a lot of times, these hamlets, as they expand, they need overhead street lighting. So just need respect to overhead street lighting. Sure, if these lots go up.
Through the chair, I apologize to Councillor, but I was not able to hear what he just provided. If Councillor, if you could please repeat so I can ensure your comment is recorded.
My question, sir, is with respect to the need for
Mike, no one can hear you.
Can you hear me now? How's that?
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Columbus.
Technical glitch, I guess. Hello?
We can hear you,
Councillor. We can hear you.
Yes, my question, I can't really hear you, but I'll pose a question anyway. My question is with respect to overhead street lighting as these hamlets expand, and whether you in fact are looking at that down the road with respect to the site plan process.
To the chair and to the councillor, thank you. We definitely will note that for our recommendation report.
Okay, anything further? If not, David Rowe, welcome. And you've got 5 minutes for your presentation.
Yes, good afternoon. What we're proposing here is essentially 4 new building lots within the hamlet of La Salette. We had a hydrogeological report done to ensure that the lots are adequate size to accommodate an on-site well and septic system, and the lots clearly are. The policy of the county has been if you can maintain 1 acre, 4,000 square meters, you're not required to do such a report. However, in this case, albeit we're quite close to the 1 acre or the 4,000, we went ahead and did the report anyway. Other than that, again, the lot itself, the lots are very level, very easy to be built upon. There's been a fairly high uptake on vacant and other building lots within the county, and felt this would be an asset to the community, a chance to have residential infilling within an existing settlement area, which is encouraged by our official plan. We went with the 4 lots because the lots themselves are quite capable of supporting private on-site systems. That's basically my comments. If there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer.
Questions for David? Further questions from council for staff? I should say, is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application first of all? And then I'll come back to you, Councillor Van Passen. Again, is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application? Okay, in that case, Councillor Van Passen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For either the our planner or the applicant, on the maps it refers to a proposed 10-meter road widening for Wyndham Road 19. Is that already accounted for in the widths that are presented on these proposed lots, or is that lot on the northeast corner going to lose 10 meters at some point?
My understanding is that we accounted for the widening as part of the submitted plans or sketches that went with the application. So that is with the 10-meter wide road widening that's going to be taken.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Vanden Rishi, go ahead. You're on mute.
I'd just like to commend the lots being proposed there because it's simple that agriculture is looking for workers and workers are looking for homes in rural areas. So this is, it's vital for the agricultural operations out there as well. So I'm glad to see it in hamlet zones.
Any further questions from comments from council? Okay, in that case, if I could have a mover of the staff recommendation. Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That is carried. Next report, staff report CD 2157, an application that's been received to amend the zoning bylaw to change the zoning on the subject lands from general industrial MG zone with special provision of 14.359 to general industrial zone with a site-specific special provision to address deficiencies related to interior side yard setback, front yard setback, structure height, and specific provisions pertaining to multiple lots in the area outlined in special provision 14.359. Grassmere Construction Limited, on behalf of 2582571 Ontario Incorporated, put forth the applications affecting the lands described as 14 Norfolk County Road 16. And I believe that's back to you again, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Madam Chair indicated, the subject lands are located in Cortland on the northeast corner of Norfolk County Road 13 and Highway 3. The site contains the existing business, Lockhart's Odyssey, and the property is designated protected industrial and zone general industrial with an area specific provision 14.359. The applicants are proposing to build a 632 square meter outdoor display area for the display and sale of recreational boats. In order to do so, some of the general industrial zone provisions have to be addressed, as do components of the existing area-specific zoning policy. So the subject lands fall within the settlement area and are protected industrial lands. Typically, these lands are dedicated for more stereotypical industrial uses. However, the subject business has existed at this location for some time. The lands do fall within the special policy area 7.12.3.1, which is Cortland's protected industrial area, which states the following, notwithstanding section 7.12.1. To the contrary, a full range of industrial uses shall be permitted. Any existing residential development, this is B, may be recognized in the zoning bylaw, and C, no new residential development shall be permitted. And D, in order to promote aesthetic quality, proposals for industrial development within the site-specific policy area that are visible from adjacent roads shall be required to provide a higher standard of amenity in terms of landscaping, building materials, or outdoor storage in accordance with the protected industrial designation policies. The subject application was provided along with a planning rationale report, a stormwater management report, and an associated site plan. In terms of agency comments, there is nothing of significance to note at this time. Of course, should anything come about, it would be provided to council. No public input has been received as of yet on this application. So the next steps will include reviewing all the associated comments provided, including any comments provided today, and providing a recommendation report for council in regards to the zoning bylaw amendment and official plan. That concludes our presentation, and if council has any questions or the public, I would be happy to answer those.
Questions for Nicole?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Nicole, for that good report. I just want to make it clear, if you can just make those adjustments, a little typo there. This is Norfolk County Road 13. At a couple of spots in the report, it says Norfolk County Road 16. So if you can make those corrections, that'd be great.
Further comments from council? Councillor Vanden Rishi, go ahead.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. This is good use of the property. It was always an industrial park there, so any added business or types of business is welcomed, because with more business, we have more employment. So very pleased to see this as well.
Any further questions, comments from councillors? Okay, in that case, is the agent online? Mary, is that yourself?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to comment that this is really a light industrial use, and the aspect that we put in this, the display area, is really more like a commercial use. It's not what you typically find in an industrial use where you might have outdoor storage and a lot of movement back and forth of different trucks and lifters and things like that. It's really a quiet area where people will be talking as they're looking at these boats under this display structure. So that's why I've supported this as being an appropriate development for this area. It's important that the display area be open to this street and to view from people going by, and that's why I've supported not having it screened as planned, as policy indicates. So I just wanted to mention those things that I do feel it's appropriate. They're going to, in the site plan, add some solid fencing and some landscaping by that first hamlet residentially zoned lot so that people in the backyard can enjoy that. So I think those things will address any concerns or issues that might have thought to be with this proposal. Thank you, and I'm open for any questions.
Thanks, Mary. Questions from councillors? Okay, and Mr. Booth, did you have any comments you wish to add? That was on this application?
No, I was just here to answer any questions from council regarding the type of structure, or as Mary has indicated, it is an open structure, so there's nothing closed in. And, you know, for boat viewing and people walking. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm good.
Sounds good. Any questions from councilors? Back to staff? No? Okay, if somebody can move the staff recommendation. Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next application, staff report CD 2158, an application that's been received to amend the zoning bylaw, change the zoning from Hamlet Commercial CHA zone with a holding to Hamlet Commercial zone with a holding and a site-specific special permit provision to permit a storage facility with additional site-specific special provisions to address deficiencies related to exterior side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, and the location of the parking in relation to an interior lot line. Mike Buchanan on behalf of 2137101 Ontario Limited and agent G. Douglas Valley have put forth the applications affecting the lands described as to be determined.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The subject site is located on the southwest corner of Highway 3 and Cockshut Road within the hamlet of Renton. The property is designated Hamlet and zoned Hamlet Commercial with a holding. The predominant land uses in the area is low density residential with commercial operations on all four corners of Highway 3 and the Cockshut Road intersection. Staff would note that the lands to the south and east are agricultural lands with active agricultural operations. For council's information, I provided an illustration of the site, as you can see on top. In terms of the proposal, this isn't a proposal to amend the current Hamlet commercial zone to permit a self-storage facility use, so it's not a rezoning, just a use amendment. In addition to the use amendment, there's multiple special provisions to accommodate for the development. The requested amendments are as follows. So it's to permit the self-storage facility within the CHA zone, to permit a minimum exterior side yard setback of 3 meters, whereas 6 is required, to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 3 meters, whereas 9 is required, and to permit a minimum setback for a parking lot adjacent to a residential zone of 3 meters, where 4.5 meters is required. The use itself is a hybrid of personal storage and a moving business. The company, the Moving Box, has established operations in Brantford, Paris, Simcoe, Hamilton, Dundas, and Woodstock. The proposed use is traditionally found in our industrial zone, meaning that self-storage use. This is an illustration of what the proposed site will look like. As you can see, there's a mix of physical storages of those moving boxes, as well as dedicated vehicle, RV, and trailer storage along the west property line. Staff would highlight that overnight accommodations and or camping is not permitted on site, just the accessory storage of vehicles. In terms of circulation and technical reports, a concept plan and planning justification report was provided by Douglas G. Valley, and we circulated these plans to agencies and departments for comments, and there was nothing in particular to flag. That said, staff did receive a letter of concern from the operator of the farm to the east and south. The letter outlined a number of concerns surrounding the reduced setback and possible impacts on the agricultural operation, whether the long-term storage of those vehicles will have possible pollution on the adjacent ag lands, and wanted to address if there was going to be any trespassing issues. Staff have followed up with discussions with this member of the public, and they further elaborated that they have concerns with runoff and disturbances along the shared property line, as a farm operator recently began seeding specialty crops along the area and are worried that the development of the site may impact crop yield. The farm owner wishes to receive confirmation that the site works and end result will not impact their operation and financial investment in the area. So just for everyone's information, this the farm which is provided this letter is this farm right here. So staff would like to comment on this, that the intent of any development should not negatively impact the operation of any adjacent business. Proper barriers and screening will be implemented through site plan control, in addition to site grading to ensure runoff is controlled and exits through designated outlets. The applicant and agent are aware that no runoff should impact any neighboring properties at time of construction or following this, and this includes during operation. In terms of next steps, it would be the recommendation report going to council, and then a future site plan application and removal of the holding subject to council's decision on this application. At this time, there's been no major issues with reflect to this application, save and accept the discussions with the agent and this property owner regarding mitigation measures for the existing agricultural operation. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any question the council or the public may have.
Okay, thanks very much. Scott, just a reminder to council, we do have the agent online, so just if your questions are better directed after the agent, you can hang on for that. Otherwise, I'll start with Councillor Columbus.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, prior to this current term of council, there was a very similar proposal came forward for the village of Cortland. And at that time, our fire department, the Norfolk Fire, had indicated that they needed a pond for fire suppression purposes because they didn't have municipal water. So I'm surprised that there's no pond requirement on this particular proposal, yet it was stipulated that there would have to be one in the village of Cortland when something very similar was being proposed.
Through the chair to councillor, this application was circulated to fire, and I can confirm that they have responded and have no concerns at this time.
Perhaps it's a more progressive fire chief. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Couple questions through you, Mayor Chop, to Scott. My first, I know that staff typically hand site plan control, but will there be specific consideration given, because I'm sure this facility will be lit up like a Christmas tree for security purposes, and people will have key card accesses to get into units or their property on site. So will there be specific considerations, or I'm hoping that there will be specific considerations given to lighting in site plan control, given that it's beside crops?
Through the chair to councillor, most definitely this is subject to site plan control, and through that process we do look at photometrics, so being the illumination of a property. That will be something we do review and we do control. Okay,
thank you. My next question, when you look at a property like this that isn't residential units, I know every developer wants it to be the most lucrative deal for them, and they want to get the most bang for their buck on the property, which no one would fault them for. But why are any setbacks required at all on a property like this? Why can they not just simply reduce their units and have 0 amendments requested? They're not residential homes. It's a for-profit storage facility.
Through Madam Chair to councillor, I would direct that to the agent, if they're willing to speak to that.
Sure, will do. Thank you. And then my last comment, I guess, is just a comment for staff and colleagues. You know, this is really the gateway into a very high traffic area into the Port Dover community as well. And although this service is very badly needed and will be utilized from all of Norfolk County, I'm sure, I support the business. I will be very sad to lose that cute little red farm stand as the first thing you see when you come into a community. So I am torn a little bit on this, but that doesn't have any specific planning policy to weight behind it, but just some comments. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Martin, I agree with your comments as well. I'm not sure even coming into the little village, seeing that right there is necessarily the best planning myself. Councillor Huffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Actually, Councillor Martin touched on a couple of my things, but I'm just going to say that I would absolutely not support this at all. Having grown up in this area and with the hamlet of Renton and coming down Highway number 3 or coming down Cockshut, and we're going to see a commercial kind of entity in the middle of agricultural land, to me is just not good planning. And again, I don't understand why, when we're looking at 9 meters required and they're requesting 3 meters, like those are just ridiculous to me, ridiculous amounts of requests for an exception for setbacks. So I just think this would be an absolutely horrible development to be in Renton. So those are my points.
Councillor Huffman, Councillor Columbus.
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down. Apologize.
Okay, Mr. Rowe, I think you're on the line. Or sorry, can't remember the agent.
No, I'm not the agent on this one, thank goodness.
Is that Eldon again? Eldon, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'll share my screen. Okay. Thank you again for allowing me to speak. We're representing our client, Mike Becken, the owner of the moving box. So yes, as Scott had mentioned, this is on the southwest corner of Highway 3 and Cockshut Road in Renton. Half the property is within the hamlet boundary. The area at the intersection is intended for commercial development, providing great exposure to those traveling by. The moving box, I have to clarify, it's not a mini storage facility. Rather, what it is moving box bins are delivered to customers, they're filled, and then they're picked up and stored on the property. So the only actual building that's going to be on this site is similar to a bin, but it will be a small office connected to hydro. The land's also going to be used for RV and trailer storage. As Scott had mentioned, it's not going to be used for camping or anything like that. It's just, it is a storage site. There's no traffic impacts. There's an average of maybe 6 trips a day that are anticipated through both the bin pickup and delivery and RV and trailer storage. So again, very minimal traffic will be generated. So I think it's really important to note that the existing zoning includes a long list of permitted uses, such as automobile gas stations, contractors shop, farm implement sales and service, hardware stores of all types. So unlike these more active uses that are already permitted by the bylaw, our line is proposing a very passive use. It's very passive in nature, and it's going to generate substantial traffic, noise, or dust. There's a small sliver of the lands that is currently zoned hamlet residential. The entire parcel of land should have the same zoning, which is why we're proposing that this small sliver be rezoned to have similar zoning with CHA. The proposed reductions in setback, they do not appear to have impacts on adjacent properties, and they will be mitigated through the provision of landscaping. Through the site plan process, landscaping is also intended to enhance the visual character of the streetscape. ARC recognizes the importance of this intersection, and through that site plan process, we'll be providing nice landscaping around the entire perimeter and focus on the gateway area, if you will. We have received some comments from the neighbor to the south, and our client definitely will be speaking with them and trying to address concerns. They had mentioned concerns about setbacks, pollution, passing, and how this use may impact them. We definitely appreciate these concerns, so we'd like to note that This proposed use is far more passive than any other uses currently permitted by the bylaw. So essentially, if there was no need to sort of tailor the definition of the use to the bylaw, we wouldn't necessarily even really need an amendment, but we are doing so to try to, maximize the use of the site. We're also including space around the perimeter so that we have drainage swales and all water will contain to the site, so there won't be any pollution leaving the site. We will also have, in terms of security, there'll be security fencing, and as Councillor Martin had mentioned, there'll be security lighting. We actually are working with the consultant right now through the site plan process to reduce our lighting and contain them on the site. We understand that we do not want to have a major spillover onto adjacent, especially now that the neighbor has raised those. So we will be working with staff to make sure that the light's contained on the site. Just sort of capturing my next note. The setback, I understand the concerns about the setbacks. From the site plan drawing that was on Scott's presentation there, the setback it's just for parking. Again, it's not for buildings. It's a small site, so we need to sort of maximize the ability for people to move around back in and plop their trailers down on the site and move bins around. So the more space we have for that maneuverability, the better it is, and the more people that the site can serve. And we that these reduced SACs would impact the neighbors, and it will be further controlled and mitigated through the site plan process. So it is ideal. It is on Highway 3, which is easy to get to. The official plan and zoning generally allows this form of development already. We know that Norfolk County is growing and the need for storage services is also growing. The proposed amendment will facilitate a needed system that is passive in nature, which is suitable in the context of the hamlet area, and is in keeping with the proposed intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. We believe that this is a good development for the community and the neighborhood. I mentioned a few times, I have to stress that it is a passive business that would have far less impact on adjacent lands than any of the permitted uses currently permitted through that zone. So I'd like to thank Council for allowing me to speak again, and we encourage Council to support the proposed bylaw amendment, facilitate this development, especially considering part of my presentation. If I may, there was one comment with regards to fire protection. Since there's only one little small office building being proposed, it's most likely why the fire chief has not asked for protection, because there are no buildings. So I hope that answers that question. And if anybody else has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And also, our client, Mike Beckendam, would like to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Well, why don't we let Mike go ahead first, and then we can pose questions to both the applicant and the agent.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome, Mike.
Hi. Yeah, so I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak, and I definitely appreciate your concerns about the optics of that corner and that site. So I thought maybe it'd be helpful just to know a little bit about me and the company and kind of what we're proposing. My wife and I started the Moving Box 15 years ago in Paris. The company has grown significantly, and we have locations now in a number of cities, as has been indicated. The company has also grown now to 30 full-time staff, so it's not a small company anymore, but not a real large company. It's still family-owned and operated. My wife and I still own and operate the entire company. What attracted me to this corner is, of course, is the high exposure for our business, but because I know what I could do with that corner. So my head office location is in the little town here of Canesville. So that's where I live. That's where I am right now. And same thing, we're the exact entrance to Brantford as you're coming down the original Highway 2. And so my home is right beside my office here as well. But I did a beautiful landscape all along the front of the highway because this property was kind of the same thing. It was the entrance to the town. It had not been cleaned up or developed in a long time. So I bought it, and I took a lot of pride in how I made it look and how I maintain it. I maintain it beautifully all the time, so it looks beautiful as you're coming in. Last year I bought a property in Woodstock. It's right on Highway 2, right on the main road between Woodstock and London. I did the same thing there. Beautiful landscaping, beautiful trees and gardens. So when I saw this corner, I thought, you know, I could really make this corner look really, really sharp and do a really good job with it. And I intend to kind of make everybody kind of proud of what it looks like when we're done. I also maybe just want to say that I definitely appreciate the concerns of the neighbors of the farm. I grew up in the greenhouse industry, so that's my background as well. So I can definitely appreciate their concerns, and I look forward to meeting with them to mitigate any of their concerns. And every property that I own and operate, I have great relations with all of my neighbors. And especially after we've been there for a while, they see how well we fit in, how low impact we are. And so we have great relations everywhere, and I'm confident we'll have the same thing here once the site would be done. So yeah, that's just a little bit about us and the company and what we do. So.
Did you bring any pictures or anything with you, Mike, by chance, of all this landscaping at the other locations?
I didn't bring it with me today, but I did submit it as part of our initial application, showing the landscaping at our other sites and properties and stuff as well.
Okay. I know, you know, I think the challenge is a little bit, you know, when your agent sort of talks to, you know, some of the things in an automobile, like gas station and so on, but, you know, a lot of the other things that are listed in the commercial hamlet zone, kind of wrapping my head around: antique shop, art gallery, bake shop, bed and breakfast, you know, convenience store, nursery, fruit and vegetable outlet. It's just, it is a very different transition into doing this than what is typically within your hamlet commercial zones. Councillors, or any questions from councillors to either the applicant or the agent? I would be interested in if you wanted to email them out to council and see, following the meeting, you can get the contact from the planning department, and sort of if you had ideas on design or so on, or what you've done in other locations. I would be curious to see it.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that.
Any further questions? Okay. Is there anyone else online that wishes to speak to the application? Going once, going twice. Anyone else online that wishes to speak to the application?
I'm here from the Farmers End, AH Garden Produce. My name is Doha.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Okay, well, thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to thank everybody for taking into consideration the possible effects on the agricultural land. And I wanted to emphasize that we don't intend to prevent anybody from conducting business, as we are a family business. We're just very concerned about specifically the setback and how much closer you can get to the crop, which I just want to mention is our primary crop and is the primary support of this farm. And so we do actually have plans to continue to, you know, add crop to this and grow this barn, which is very, very dear to the community and to the previous farmer as well. So I just thought I would, you know, say that, because it's not that we don't want anyone to do business next to us. We know that it's zoned for plenty of different things, but it just wanted you to consider that, you know, the shorter the setback is reduced, the more that, you know, it may have an impact. So thank you for allowing me to speak again.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Any questions from councillors? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone else online that wishes to speak to the application? All right, in that case, if somebody wishes to move the staff recommendation or propose an alternative. Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, I move the application.
Seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And that is carried. Next we have staff report CD 2160. This is an application that's been received to approve a draft plan of subdivision with 7 lots and rezone the subject lands from agricultural to
Is
rural
now
industrial.
exiting.
To rural industrial with a holding H to Hamlet residential RH zone. I think I might have missed something in there. With 7 lots and rezone the subject lands from agricultural A and rural industrial with a holding H to Hamlet residential zone. John Henry Smith Land Incorporated and Agent Civic Planning Solutions have put forth the applications affecting the lands described as 1309 Turkey Point Road. And Mohammed, I believe this one is for you.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just wanted to make sure that you can see my screen. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and the Council. The subject site for this application is located at Turkey Point Road within Hamlet of Walsh. The site is located at the north of St. John's Road West and Turkey Point Road intersection. The land is surrounded mostly by agricultural lands at the south side, and there is a rural industrial land at the south side. So the land is surrounded by agricultural land at most of the sides, and only at the south side there is a rural industrial land. A portion of the subject land is designated as agricultural, which is located at the west side and is not a part of this application. As you can see in the slide, the development will be linear in shape along Turkey Point Road. This portion of land is designated as Hamlet in the official plan. And designation of Hamlet means residential development will be permitted. In the zoning bylaw, it is partly agricultural and partly rural industrial with a holding. The proposal is for a subdivision application for 7 lots. Each of the lot will have approximately 54 meters frontage and 75 meter depth. The lots will be served by private well and septic system, which is a standard servicing system that is allowed by the official plan in Hamlet areas. To approve this subdivision, a zoning bylaw amendment will be required to change the current zoning of agricultural and rural industrial land to Hamlet residential zone. The current zoning has a holding provision, and that is for a site plan control on rural industrial part. And this will not be required anymore as it will be changed to single detached residential lots. We have received several technical reports for this application, including a planning justification report, a functional servicing report, and stormwater management brief, a traffic impact study, a hydrogeological study, and 2 stages of archaeological studies. Further archaeological assessment may be required before any development. We received few comments from the staff after completing this report. The comments include a recommendation for an easement to collect the remaining stormwater runoff from these 7 lots, and this is to the existing creek at the west side. And also, if a petition is required to include larger area of the stormwater runoff, this needs to be confirmed by the owner and applicant, and it has to be completed before the registration of the subdivision. An archaeological clearance from the ministry and a record of site condition will be conditions for the approval. Since a part of the site is rural industrial historically, and there are some archaeological evidence has been also found, as I mentioned, that 2 stages of assessment has been done, and further assessment might 1 or 2 areas of the land. We also received one public comment so far after finalizing this report. The concerns are related to water table of the subject lands and the area. Planning staff already replied that the water table study has been completed through a hydrogeological study. The study included private well data of 45 surrounding wells with data collected from MECP. And full technical review will be, it has not been done yet, so it will be done during the process. And if any concerns we found, we generally add a condition of warning clause for the new homeowners. And that will be done through the draft plan of conditions. There is another question regarding conversion of agricultural land to residential. And also planning staff recommended, confirmed that the agricultural designated area in the official plan, that is not part of this application. So there will be no concern about the conversion of agricultural land to the residential land. So the next steps for this application is basically receiving all technical comments and revision of the drawings and reports if necessary. Once this process is completed, we'll provide the recommendation report to the council. This concludes my presentation, and I think David is there, but I'll be also happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohammed. Questions from council? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Rowe, I believe this is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we originally approached, I think it was actually through the official plan review, our proposal for a subdivision. We had at one point looked to expand the hamlet. However, we concluded that that was not going to happen. So what we've done is we would be creating 7 1-acre residential lots fronting onto the Turkey Point Road. There's residential on the east side of the road, and the proposed 7 lots will be compatible with that. We're also outside the influence area for a natural environmental area further to the west. And so we shouldn't have any real issues with that. Stormwater management at the present time, actually water off of the Turkey Point Road run through a private, across my client's property, over to the creek through an unregistered easement, as we understand. That will be, stormwater will then, it'll be addressed through an extension of a municipal drain to accommodate the stormwater runoff from both the lots as well as the existing runoff the Turkey Point Road. There is a real demand for vacant residential lots, and particularly in an area that is fairly close to Turkey Point, is roughly equal distance between Simcoe and Delhi. We think that we shouldn't have really any problems selling these lots. It's something that is needed in the community. The size of the lots themselves are being an acre, will likely accommodate some very nice new homes in the future. So we're really quite eager to get the draft plan approval, clear those conditions, and hopefully for 2022 have 7 new lots on the market. If there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Questions for David from council? Okay, thank you, David. Is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak to the application? Is there anything further from council to staff? Okay, in that case then, if I could have a mover of staff recommendation or propose an alternative, Councillor Taylor moving that, seconded by Councillor Van den Drieschie. All those in favor? And that is carried. And finally, if, one quick thing before we adjourn, I would just encourage everyone to stay well tuned to social media tomorrow. But I believe we have an announcement that is coming forward with respect to Normandale. So everyone should pay attention online to the province. And with that, if I could have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Huffman, letting me down. And seconded by Councillor Rabbits. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. And have a good night. We will see you, Council, on Thursday for the continuation of the CAO interview process, I believe starting at 9 a.m. And there is a bylaw appeals hearing starting at 1 on Thursday. And then, of course, Council and Committee the following Tuesday. So thanks again, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Okay, everyone, have a great night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Norfolk, 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 Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario.